And then at 8:46, we heard this loud noise. And then I see this plane racing past us at a very low altitude and at high speed. It disappeared behind a few tall buildings. And then when it reappeared, I saw the plane aim and crash into the World Trade Center.
It appears an airplane crashed into the World Trade Center.
As we pulled up, we saw smoke coming from the top of the building. And I put on my fire gear and my helmet, and when I walked into the lobby, immediately to my right, there were 2 people burnt. But my job was to take command, and I knew my firefighters were right behind me and my EMS, and they would take care of the victims.
Your brother Kevin was also a firefighter, and he, like so many other firefighters in Manhattan, was called to the World Trade Center. You saw him that day?
A little bit before 9 o'clock, my brother came in, reported into the lobby with engine 33. He was the lieutenant of that unit. And he came up to me, not saying a word. We looked at each other, wondering if each of us was going to be okay. And then I ordered him, as I ordered many other fire officers, to take their units upstairs. At 9:03, we heard another loud sound of jet engines racing. It sounded like a fighter plane coming in for an attack. And then I heard an explosion. I saw fire debris raining down on the outside of the big windows of the lobby. And at that moment, somebody ran in, one of the firefighters ran in and said, there was a second plane, he saw it. Now, our problems just doubled. We have 2 110-story buildings on fire and thousands of people in their greatest moment of need.
Did you ever think that the towers would collapse?
If you were watching it on news broadcasts, you had more information than I did. I had no idea that the loud rumbling sound was a high-rise building collapsing. All I knew is that the lobby that I was in went completely dark. And at that moment, I got on my radio and I said, command to all units in Tower 1, evacuate the building. And I heard that relayed up, and then the firefighters started to come down. There is one moment when I thought about my family, and that was when the second tower collapsed. And I knew we were too close. And then this beautiful summer day that was full of bright sunshine, in the street, it went completely black, that you couldn't see the hand in front of your face. And at that moment, I wondered about my family.
There have been some remarkable stories emerging from the horror of September 11, ones of kindness and heroism and compassion. Do you remember those moments vividly as well?
I do. As my brother was coming down, he stopped on the 9th floor to redirect people from one stairs to a safer way out. And he redirected fire units. And one of the captains from Engine 7, Captain Dennis Tardio, told me that if it wasn't for my brother, he wouldn't be alive today, that my brother saved his life.
Would you say that the New York Fire Department are some of the bravest people in the world?
They definitely are. I think that's why our nickname is the bravest. And that morning, they showed that. They came in quietly, like my brother, and they had a grim look on their face, knowing how dangerous this was going to be. These are examples of ordinary heroes, or our heroes doing ordinary things at an extraordinary time in history.
To mark the 20th anniversary of 9/11, Chief Joseph Pfeiffer has released his memoir, Ordinary Heroes. It is available now from all good book retailers. Dickie and Sophie.
Oh, there's nothing ordinary about him or any of that.
What a moving piece.
Very powerful. Well, the Australian War Memorial has commemorated the anniversary and our Defence Force efforts since 9/11.
Now let's bring in Nine's political editor Chris Ullman in Canberra. Chris, good morning. This is the first anniversary we don't have troops in Afghanistan. How real is the threat of terrorism 20 years on?
It's still very real, Sophie. It's as real as a knife and a fanatic in a supermarket in Auckland. But of course, that threat's changed. We've seen action and reaction. So it's also as real as a right-wing fanatic attacking a mosque in Christchurch. Over the last 20 years, we have seen the threat of terrorism change. It's changed from those large-scale events that we've seen. So certainly all the efforts that have been putting into trying and stopping that have had some effect. But it's changed into solo efforts by people with weapons as simple as cars and knives that they've snatched from a supermarket shelf. So the threat of terrorism is with us still. It's different than it was, and it's certainly keeping our security forces still very, very busy.
Chris, how has our place in the world changed?
And Richard, that's a great question. You could write a PhD thesis on that. It's very much tied, of course, to our major ally. It was the United States after those attacks on the Twin Towers that then went to war in Afghanistan. And you will recall that at that stage, almost the entire world was behind the United States because of the nature of that attack. The idea was to root out al-Qaeda from amidst its Taliban stronghold in Afghanistan. And of course, they chased them all the way to the caves of Tora Bora, where in fact they then began to morph. And they got support from countries like Pakistan, I'm talking about the Taliban. And then the United States got diverted into Iraq, which was a war that almost nobody agreed with, but Australia went there. And it was in Iraq that the United States lost its moral authority, where we saw those images of the way that it treated some of its prisoners, and we heard about the CIA black ops sites where they held people, and then of course we got Guantanamo Bay, where people were held without trial, and we're still working our way through that. So the United States over a long period of time has lost its moral authority, it's lost some of its power, and it's been diminished by this. So the world has changed, and now of course it faces a new threat in the form of a rising alternative power in China. So it meets that threat in a weakened kind of way. So yeah, the world's a very different place, and in some ways it's more unsafe now than it was then.
Yeah, beautifully summed up.
Chris, switching gears and on the home front, 1 million new doses of Moderna are now going to be available in pharmacies in October. We were slow to get going, but do we finally have enough vaccines?
Yeah, finally, thank God.